This is Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque, continuing 16 years on air and online, helping you succeed in buying, selling, and investing in property. The best real estate strategies out there just for you.
Welcome to Real Estate This Week. Hi again, I'm Stephen Gasque, and I'm so glad you're here as we get expert advice on how to buy a house. Information you need to know if you're buying your first home or if you've bought lots of homes, including expert strategies on how you can win if other buyers want the same house. Joining us now is Dale Mattison, team leader at the Mattison Group at Long & Foster Real Estate in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Dale is the past president of both the Greater Capital Area Association of Realtors and also the Washington, D.C. Association of Realtors. Dale is also a Realtor Emeritus, signifying more than 40 years in the business. Dale, welcome to Real Estate This Week.
I am so glad to be here again with you. Thank you for having me.
Dale, I'm so glad you're with us. And so tell me, first of all, how's business in the Washington, D.C. area?
You know, as I go around the marketplace and I talk to new agents and consumers, I tell them business is always great because people will always have to live somewhere.
That's a good point. A good point. And some of the people who will end up buying houses right now might be in rental apartments or might be living with their parents. And so, Dale, I'd like to talk to you about buying a home in today's market and how those people, if they want to, can get into a home of their own. Dale, first of all, what's the most important thing you would tell someone who wants to make the jump from renting or living at home into their own house?
I think the first thing I would tell them, Stephen, is that you got to jump into the water if you want to learn how to swim. And the same with home buying. It's been proven that owning a home helps to create a familial wealth over time. And it's something where you got to jump in and swim.
And really, there are three parts to learning that swimming. One is you'll need a good savings account, another, a good credit score, and an income that is commensurate with the price of the home you wish to buy. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. Obviously, credit is important just in life in general, but certainly in the home buying arena. So you want to get a copy of your credit score and see what it is, and perhaps talk to a mortgage lender to get an idea of how your score compares with what's needed in the mortgage arena. If you need to work on it, take the time and work on it and get the score numbers up. The higher the score, the better interest rate you can get. And so that's the first step. Savings, put aside some money a little bit at a time. And if you just save it over time, it will accumulate quickly and you'll have the down payment. And then, of course, your income is what it is. And so you want to look to purchase within your means. Sometimes I will talk to buyers and they want to buy that ultimate dream home first time out of the gate. And you might not be able to do that, but you can buy something that is a step up. If you're living in an 800 square foot apartment, if you bought an 800 square foot condo, that would be a better position for yourself from the standpoint of starting to accumulate equity, having a tax write-off, and doing well financially. So it is actually a step up, even if it were the same type or size of property that you're in now. And then you stay in that a few years and move up. And so that covers those three points that you mentioned.
Well, Dale, that is just wonderful, and it brings back a flood of memories. I remember being a young man in one of my first jobs and not making a whole lot of money. And I would walk through the beautiful neighborhoods of Washington, D.C., and see a gorgeous home for sale. And I would think, I wonder if I could get that. I had no data, I had no criteria, and of course, I could not. And so, how does a person who wants to buy a home find out if they can afford the home they want? Is it through their realtor or their lender? What's the process?
I would encourage any interested party to contact a realtor first. I always suggest to people I come into contact with that just like you have a family doctor, a family lawyer, a family realtor is equally important to work with over your lifespan. And so that's a good person that you know, that you can build a level of trust with and have good heart to heart conversations about your goals and aspirations as they relate to home ownership. And so that's a good start. That realtor will have a connection with multiple lenders. So you have the option of connecting with a lender that you can trust and like as well, and get information on the specifics for your particular wants, needs, and abilities. And that's how you get started at this.
That's a really good point, Dale. And let me ask you about that. If I'm looking to get a mortgage and I'm a first time buyer, or for that matter, if I'm a 21st time buyer, should I shop around for that mortgage, or is the first lender bound to be the best one?
It certainly does not hurt to shop. But again, if you've got the relationship with the realtor, they're going to have relationships with lenders that you can trust, lenders that will answer their phone and be there for you. And so having someone that is a pro at what they do is the critical part of getting to the end result. It's important to build that relationship with a team. Sometimes once you've gotten past the point of being approved for a loan and perhaps picking a property, you still could be in a position where you might end up having to compete or at least win the seller's acceptance of your ability to buy their property. And part of the seller's willingness to accept an offer is going to be based on the team that you've put together as a buyer to represent you, to work with you, to take you from start to finish.
And when it comes to that team, and as you say, presenting an offer to a seller, I understand that if you're not pre-approved for the mortgage, in many cases, you might as well not even try. But you need to be pre-approved. Can you tell us why?
Sure. It just adds firmness and solidity to your offer. The seller will know that you have the ability to buy. It also helps, though, when you're at the beginning of this process, as you get ready to go out shopping, being pre-approved, you know what you can afford. You know what kind of properties will fit in with the lender's requirements. And so you know what to view and look at and choose from.
That is such great advice. And also, when it comes to trying to win the house you love, now, what's involved in writing an offer that the seller will pick while they reject other offers?
There are a number of components to an offer, and every term, every part of the offer that specifies what you will do adds either strength or weakness to the offer. The size of the deposit. The larger deposit shows more willingness to commit on your part to the purchase transaction. The terms. What kind of financing are you going to use? How much are you putting down? How much are you financing? The contingencies that are involved. Do we want to make it contingent on a home inspection? how many days to get that done from the time your offer is accepted. When can you go to closing on the transaction? Sooner rather than later, in most sellers' mind, is more advantageous. On average, closing times are about 36 days. And so all of the terms, all of the contingencies, all of the components of the offer can make your offer stronger or weaker. And stronger always puts you in a better place.
Dale, that is so interesting. Now, we have talked about the offer, and we've talked also about the possibility of competition. Now, Dale, I am hearing that in many markets across America, things are changing and that more and more homes are coming on the market, which means less competition. Are you seeing that yet in the DC area?
We are. Inventory levels are starting to creep upwards of 20% over where they were pre-pandemic. We're starting to see price adjustments or reductions to the tune of 40% of all listings. And so there are some changes in the market and less competition, but there are still instances where there is competition. The prettiest house on the block is likely to have competition. The ugliest house on the block may have a price reduction. The dog might be in the front yard barking at us.
And I know you've seen plenty of homes for sale just like that, Dale.
Oh gosh, I sure have.
Oh my gosh. And so again, if a first-time buyer wants to win, they're going to need their credit to be good, they're going to need some money in the bank, and they're going to need to know how much house they can afford. Those are just the starting blocks. But after that, an offer that gives the seller pretty much what the seller needs and doesn't weigh it down with all sorts of demands, correct?
That's correct. I mean, part of the going through the home buying process is keeping the level of anxiety and frustration on the buyer's part down. And so being prepared, understanding the process, knowing how to put forward a really good offer helps keep that anxiety and frustration to a minimum and thus makes the process an enjoyable one as it should be. That's a real joy when you get your keys and you go turn the lock and you pop the cork and celebrate. That's a great time.
It is a great time. And now, Dale, let's also talk about people who are not first-time home buyers, but people who have bought and sold lots of houses in their lives. Now, in today's market, what would be your advice to someone who's a repeat buyer who very likely has a huge pile of equity to put into their next home?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I think as you look at the economies of today versus those of years past, things have changed substantially. And many people in their line of employment don't have the same kind of benefits that our parents or grandparents had. Pension plans to rely on when they are ready to retire. And so that means in today's climate, you have to build your own retirement strength and financial wherewithal. And that can be done through real estate. I mentioned earlier in our conversation about buying the same 800 square foot space similar to what you're renting now as a first place. And so what happens if you own that for a while and you continue to save money and you're ready to move up to, say, a townhouse next? Then keep that condo, rent it out, and buy the townhouse. And then save your money again. And then when you're ready to move up to the detached house, keep that townhouse buy the detached house and live happily ever after, and then maybe move up again. And so then when you get to a retirement age, a young age of 55 or 65, you have some real estate assets that potentially could be almost paid for and bringing you in additional income to carry you forward into retirement years in the next chapter of your life. So that's one thing that you can do over the course of your life to strengthen your financial posture.
And if you do that 3 or 4 times, Dale, you are in a really great position.
Exactly. You've got something to fall back on. And it's interesting as I talk to people that have used that philosophy, the contemporary approach today is you take property number one, and then you have rental property number two. And if number two is generating a positive cash flow, you don't need that $100 or $500 positive cash flow because you're still working. Take that and pay off property number one faster. And then when property number one is paid off, you pay off property number two, and then pay off property number three, and on until when you get to retirement age, you have these properties and they're all free and clear. And so that gives you an income to live on from those properties, but also gives you a significant amount of equity that you can tap into should you want and need to. Maybe you want to take a trip around the world with your significant other. Take out an equity loan on one of the properties and bam, go sailing.
Oh, Dale, this is so interesting because after all, we're talking about buying a home. But you've just made a huge point that everyone should know about. And that is that buying a home and investing in property are not different things. They're joined at the hip. And throughout your entire life, every time you own a home, you are investing in property. And you've just shown us how you can make that investment multiply over the years.
Exactly. And if you look back in time, most people that have done extremely well have done so with investments in real estate. And it's always been there, and it will always be there. And as I mentioned early on, people will always have to live somewhere, and therefore the need for real estate will always be there.
And Dale, I'd like to circle back to something you said a few minutes ago because it's so important. And that is when you're preparing your offer, looking at how much money you're going to put down as earnest money. Now, say that a person has saved up $50,000 for their down payment, and they find the home they love. Quite often, they'll just put down $5,000 or maybe $10,000. And that may be because they're afraid to put down the entire amount, afraid that something will happen to that money if the deal doesn't go through. Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. Good deposits today are in the range of 3 to 5 to 10% of the price of the property. And in most cases, it is safe money. The only way the deposit money comes to risk is if you decide to arbitrarily walk away from the transaction. So if you're buying and you have an offer that's contingent upon a loan approval, the final loan approval, you're pre-approved before we even chose the house. So you have the personal credit worthiness to seal the deal and get a final approval. So the only thing outstanding is the appraisal, and potentially, if it's a condo or HOA, the approval of the community documents and the community finances. And so there's very little risk to the deposit money unless you just got on 95 North or 66 West and just kept driving and never came back to the city where you made the offer.
Not a great plan. But Dale, you also just mentioned condominiums, and let's just touch on that because many people regard condominiums as one of the best ways to get into home ownership. Tell us about that option.
It is a really good way to get started. One, you're buying into a community where you really don't have much responsibility. Your personal responsibility is limited to inside the walls of the unit you choose. And so, yes, if the refrigerator goes bad, you have to replace it. Or the air conditioning unit dies, you've got to upgrade to a new one. But you don't have to cut the grass, and you don't have to paint outside, and you don't have to put a new roof on the place. And so you've got a real carefree lifestyle plus a strong financial asset when you buy into a condominium association. Many times people will ask, well, I'm afraid of condos because of that condo fee. It's just going to keep going up. And yes, prices on everything goes up. So depending on what that condominium fee covers, the prices on the items in that budget are going to go up over time. But a well-run association will have nominal increases, no more than what you're going to experience in a regular cost of living, provided you've done your homework when you choose your property and you choose a condominium in a complex that has good financials, has a good reserve fund, has a good handle on capital improvements to the common areas of the condominium association. So that's where a really good realtor will help you be able to look at the choices in front of you and talk through the pluses and the minuses of each and every one.
Oh, that is wonderful, Dale. Absolutely wonderful. Because again, those condo fees help keep the property value up by keeping all the common areas and everything else they pay for up as well. And Dale, one last big question for you. A lot of buyers today remember the days that they started saving for a house several years ago when interest rates were 3% or less. And now they think, well, they just can't afford it. What do you think? Should they just stop looking, or should they press ahead?
Historically, prices have always risen. Have there been times when there have been slight dips? Yes. But when you see those slight dips, the prices always come back higher. And so over time, the places are going to continue to increase in value. And so if because interest rates today are higher than they were 2 and 4 and 5 years ago, you can't wait for them to come back to those levels because we experienced some interest rates that were unbelievably low because the federal government was buying bonds that subsidized what the lenders charged in interest rates. And so unless we get to a point where we have a total financial collapse, we're not likely to see the government do that again anytime soon. And so you've got to just accept the interest rates where they are. I remember, I've been doing this for 51 years, when there were long periods where we had interest rates at double digits, 10%, 12%, 14%, and higher. So there's an old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. If you have the will, that realtor can help you find the way.
That is wonderful. And Dale, is it all worth it? Is all the hard work? Is all the saving? Is all the trying for one house and maybe losing it and yet trying again? Is it all worth it?
When I come home in the evening and I stick my key in the door and come in and enjoy dinner in a good-looking kitchen and enjoy family and friends or acquaintances as I live here, those are the best times of life. In addition, the financial foundation that it's helped me build over years has just been phenomenal. And so when you look at those two aspects of your life, how can you miss those?
Well said, my friend. Well said, Dale. And Dale, I really want to thank you for being on the show today and offering up such wonderful strategies for both first-time buyers and repeat buyers in today's market. I know you've just helped a lot of people. Thank you, Dale.
It's my pleasure, Stephen, and I hope to come back soon.
You certainly will, my friend. Dale Mattison, team leader at the Mattison Group at Long & Foster Real Estate in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Dale is the past president of both the Greater Capital Area Association of Realtors and also the Washington, D.C. Association of Realtors. Next time on Real Estate This Week, here comes winter, and we'll help you get your house ready for whatever comes your way. Expert advice on protecting your biggest investment before the weather hits. That's next on Real Estate This Week. And until then, I'm Stephen Gasque, and thank you for listening.
A brand new episode of Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque drops every Thursday, everywhere. And you're invited to listen, subscribe, and follow us. Just look for Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.